Hello, my name's Glenn Vickery. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Kiwi Bushcraft and Survival. And today I've been asked by a fellow tutor to help out with the security class self-defense for their national certificate. Okay. The unit that they're doing is unit 21738. It's an NZQA unit, and so what we're going to be doing today is going through the self-defense for a security officer. Okay, so this particular type of self-defense is the use of minimum force at all times where possible, and so it's slightly different to most other forms of self-defense. Okay, we're not trying to hurt the other person. We're trying to use minimum force. It takes a lot more skills to prevent hurting somebody than it does to hurt somebody. Okay, it's not easy to, it's not hard hurting somebody, and it takes a lot more skills and technique to be able to try not to hurt someone when they're trying to hurt you or someone else. So a little bit of background information on myself first. Okay, so I'm qualified in the New Zealand Defence Force for 10 years, unarmed combat and using minimum force, internal restraints and come-along holds when dealing with prisoners of war and detainees, uncompliant persons in state of emergency or urban conflict, bit of boxing, kung fu, some full contact ring fighting, bit of street fighting, Aikido, some basic Aikido, basic Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm also the self-defense instructor for the pre-services, pre-entry to the forces. I'm a qualified security officer in New Zealand, and I hold national certificates in security, mobile patrol, and whatnot. Okay, so I've probably been doing security. Well, when you're in the Defence Force, you do everything's about security, securing your weapons, securing your perimeters, securing your base camps. It's just full-time security. Okay, so obviously it's armed security. And when I got out of the Defence Force, I've been doing security with different companies off and on. I don't know, for probably about the last 15 plus years as well. So that's a little bit about my background, just quickly. I'll quickly now go into the a few health and safety for the students here that we're going to be, so as we go through it, we've got a bit of health and safety covered. Okay. For some of you that have been watching my other videos, you probably would have heard some of this already, but I'll quickly go through it anyway. Wash your hands before arrival, and bring a full water bottle, something to drink, okay, during the training session. Remove any jewellery if required. Listen to all instructions to the training instructor, okay, myself in this case. Anytime you are asked to stop or told to stop, make sure that you stop what you're doing, okay. When training with your training partner, please ensure that you do not try and fight the techniques, okay? Try not to fight the techniques. And what I mean by that is when somebody's doing a technique to you, don't try and fight it, okay? It just means that the other person that's doing the technique is going to do the technique harder. You're going to strain harder to stop them. They're going to do the technique harder, and somebody's going to end up getting hurt. We don't want that, okay? We're just training to learn, okay? Once you learn how to do the technique, and you want to start doing the techniques harder, then you can start using full strength to make sure that your techniques are good. Okay, no problem with that, but obviously take care of your partner and take care of yourself. In a real situation, the person that is attacking you is not going to know that you know techniques, generally. So they're not expecting a technique, and they certainly don't know what type of technique you're going to be doing, okay, when you do a technique. So when you're showing a technique, don't go, oh, I know what they're going to do, so I'm going to try and resist it. Okay, there's always ways that we can, even though a person has an advantage there where they know we're going to do something during training, we can always just do the complete opposite of what we're doing anyway. Okay, so again, don't fight it, just go with it. You're learning, and once both parties know what they're doing, then you can start to increase the strength in the technique. All of these techniques work with full strength anyway. Okay, so but we want you to learn, and we want you to learn without being hurt. If you do get hurt in some way, a broken bone or a dislocation and things like that, you could be out of action for months if not years. Okay, and that puts you in a position of danger, because at that stage while you're carrying that injury, if you get attacked in a real life situation, you're not in the best, you're not 100% able to defend yourself at 100%, and you want to be at 100%. So look after yourself, look after your partner. If you don't look after your partner and you're too rough on your partner, they will not want to train with you anymore, and if you've got no one to train with, you won't learn. So again, look after your partner and look after yourself. Number 6, tap out. Okay, tap out. Say yeah when the person is doing the technique correctly and it's getting to the point where it's going to potentially cause an injury. Okay, so prior to it causing an injury, tap out, let your partner know, yeah, you've got it. Okay, there's no sense trying to fight it and go as far as you can, next minute crack, okay, or break. Alright, so we don't want that. Okay, tap out. When your partner does it well, tell them what they're doing well. If they're not doing it well, if they're not getting the technique incorrectly, help them out. That's how we learn. Okay, we all learn by helping each other out and passing on knowledge and information. Help our partner. Last one, health and safety. Actually not last one, but second to last, health and safety. It's everybody's responsibility in law to look after themselves, and it's also everybody's responsibility to look after the other person or other people. Okay, so during the training, make sure you're looking after yourself and looking after other people. If you see somebody else doing something wrong or dangerous or something where they're going to hurt somebody else, let them know, hey brother, calm down, okay, relax. Okay, so just go easy on each other during training. When you get out there in the real world and you have to do a technique, okay, and you have to go hard, go hard. All right, nothing wrong with that as long as it's justifiable. Okay, and the last one is ensure an adequate amount of stretches are conducted prior to training. Okay, so make sure you've stretched up, make sure you're limber. Okay, I'm not going to go through stretches. All right, most people have done stretches in their lifetime. Stretch up the arms, stretch up the neck. Okay, stretch up the body. Make sure you're loosened up. Okay, so that the ligaments are all nice and loose and flexible. So generally we want our ligaments to be flexible, okay, to be able to move, okay, and move swiftly, but we also want to be strong. Okay, so it's a combination of the two. Alright, so that's it for the health and safety. I'm just going through it really quickly because I don't want to be wasting too much time on it. Okay, let's move into, just wait for this plane to fly over. Okay, so number 3. Okay, the first thing, one of the next things that we need to go through is talking about the trainee understands that force is used as a last resort. Okay, now just be aware that the security that are getting trained in this particular unit have already done other units with the use of force and things like that. Okay, however, regardless of whether you're a security officer or not, we should always only use force when it's absolutely necessary. Okay, if we can get out of using force, then that is the best option to take at all times. Always try and prevent the situation first. Okay, prevention is better than cure. So always try and prevent a situation first before it even occurs. If a situation does occur, try and downplay it. Okay, try and talk it down. Use body language. Use your voice. Use your tone. Talk to the person. Be respectful. Okay. If you've done something wrong, apologise. Man up and apologise. Okay. If somebody's misidentified you and want to have a go with you, tell the person, look, I don't even know who you are. I don't even know why you're here and why you have a problem. Be honest with them. Be straight up. Okay. But don't be defensive. Don't be don't go out like you're looking for a problem. Okay. But still, you need to stand up for yourself and still be able to protect yourself. You don't have to be a wussy about it. You know, be confident, but play it by ear. Okay, everybody's different. Every situation is different. Play it by ear. All right. But at all times, as a last resort, force is used. Okay, as a last resort. Okay, always try and find a way out. Give the other person an option out. Try and downplay it. Okay, it's very important. The next one is the trainee understands that non-violent options for responding to critical situations and ensuring compliance are in every case preferred. Okay, that's just what we basically said. Okay, we're trying to downplay it. You need to try and downplay it, talk to the person, negotiate with them, try and prevent violence. Okay, nobody really wins at the end of the day. Okay, if you have a fight with somebody, in 100 years time or 200 years time or 300 years time, no one's going to care. No one's going to remember. Okay, it doesn't really matter whether you win or lose at the end of the day, because no one's going to care at the end of the day. Okay, in 100 years time. Okay, obviously we don't want to lose to the point where if we're being attacked, we don't want to lose. We don't want to end up dead. Okay, but don't go out of your way to get into a fight or get into a situation with somebody when it's completely unnecessary. Nobody wins really at the end of the day. All right. So we need to be focusing on preventing harm to other people. Okay. Self-defense really is about defending yourself when somebody attacks you, not for us to go out attacking other people. Okay, and abusing the knowledge we gain. Okay, not good. So non-violent options is always the preferred thing. Okay, one of my sayings has always been the least amount of force that you can use in any situation is no force at all. Okay, so if you don't have to use force, that's the best thing to do. Okay? And I can't emphasize it more than that. If you do have to use force, we use minimum force. Okay? On previous videos I've covered minimum force, but I'll briefly cover it now. Minimum force is where you use the least amount of force to get the job done. Okay? So if somebody attacks you and they're going to grab you, we don't beat the crap out of them because they just grabbed us. Okay, we put them into a lock. Okay, and that way we're not having to beat them up, but we're stopping their attack. Okay, and we put them into a lock that is suitable for the amount of force that they're using. So in a nutshell, if somebody uses a certain amount of force on you, you can use just enough force more than what they're using to get control of them and stop their attack. Okay, if they amp it up, we amp it up. We can amp it up a little bit. We only amp it up a little bit. If they go a little bit higher, we can go a little bit higher. Okay, so the key there is we're always using the least amount of force to get the job done. Okay, or to prevent the attack from continuing. Don't go, if they use this amount of force, we go boom, right up here and use that amount of force. That's unnecessary, okay? if you're going to do that, you have to justify that amount of force, okay? And it's not necessary. If you can get the job done down here, then do it down here, okay? If the attacker keeps going up and you keep going up and they go up and you go up and they go up and you go up, and it gets to the point where somebody's going to end up killing somebody, okay, break away from contact if you can, okay, break away from the fight, okay, pull out, let the person go. It's not worth somebody dying over, for example, somebody stealing a packet of lollies or something, and you're trying to trespass them and they attack you, okay. You have to justify it. Are you going to go to court and say, oh yeah, they stole a packet of lollies and I ended up killing them? Okay, you've used far too much force for what the crime they've done, even though they've attacked you and you've gone like that. Okay, if you can break away at some stage, break away. If that's an option, take it. If it's not an option, well then whatever happens, happens at the end of the day. But you don't want a small crime ending up with a severe repercussion for that, on that person or yourself, okay? Sometimes we have to just learn to let things go sometimes. It's just the way it is, okay? It's in the best interest of everybody, that person and yourself and others, okay? So the other thing is that if somebody is using force against you, let's say they use force, okay? If we can use less force than what they're using, like we don't have to go above them to get control, but we can go below that level of force to get control of them, we can do that as well. And that is even a better option, okay? So that's also what we want to do. Teresa, if you can just remind me of that, and we might do an example of where somebody's using force and we go use less force than what they're using to get the job done, okay? In actual fact, I think we might just, no we won't, yeah, no we will, we'll quickly jump in there and I'll just explain that, because it is a bit of a hard one for somebody to explain. How can, if somebody's using more force and then you use less force than them, you can get more control of them? So I'll just raise the camera up a little bit, and I think we'll go out a bit. We'll bring this camera over here. Alright, and if I could just borrow you just for a second. Let's take for example that she's grabbing my arm, okay, and she's pushing towards me, okay, she's using force, okay, towards me. Now, rather than me use more force with her, I can come this way, okay. So what we've done here is I've stopped the force that she's using on me, but I've used less force. I've just used her force against her. So if we turn around this way so that you can see from this angle, okay. Again, if she's pushing towards me, okay, and I just move here, now I can place her up on her tippy toes. Okay, but I haven't used any force on her as such. I've used her power against her. I haven't tried to hit her or push her back or, you know, anything like that. I've used less force. I haven't put any force on her. I've just gone with the force that she's using, okay, and then I've come up into here. Alright? So she's put herself in this position, pretty much. Okay? So she's using force on me by grabbing me, okay, and trying to push me or something like that, and I've used less force to gain control of the situation. So if we can use less force, that's even a better option than using force on her, okay. If you can use the same amount of force, if you can't use less force, try and use the same amount of force that they're using to get the result you need. And if we have to go a higher force to get control of that person, then so be it. If you do need to increase it slightly more to get that control, then if that's the least amount of force needed, then you do it. Okay? But everything that we do must be justifiable in a court of law. Okay? Because remember, there's a lot of people out there that teach self-defense, and they teach, you know, just smash the person and do this and do that. Okay? Remember, you have to justify the amount of force you use. So if you end up in a court of law and you've used excessive force, you've used too much force, right? Even though you were defending yourself, you used too much force, you could be charged with assault, even though the other person started the attack, okay? Because they started the attack, and then you use far too much force, and all of a sudden, you become the attacker, and they become the victim. And yes, it can change, okay? Because you use too much force, okay? Using too much force is just creating more damage to people. It's creating more conflict. It's not helping it, okay? All right, so only use the force necessary to get the job done. All right, so I hope that's helped to explain that. All right. Okay, let's bring that back down a little bit. So I've covered that in a reasonable amount of depth because it is so important. Okay, to emphasise on that fact, when we use self-defence as a security officer, we can use self-defence to protect ourselves and others by law, okay? We can do that when somebody else is committing assault on us. So if somebody else is committing assault, we can defend ourselves. But we have to wait until they commit assault, okay? We can't just defend ourselves against somebody that's not doing anything to us. They're not assaulting us or anyone else. All right? If we do something to somebody and they're not assaulting us, we're then assaulting them, okay? And we'll get charged for it. So the person has to commit assault first before we can defend ourselves, or the person has to be committing assault against another person before we can defend that other person. So I'm going to quickly, very briefly go over the Crimes Act 1961, Section 2, okay? And this is New Zealand law, and most countries will be probably fairly similar. Sorry about the noise in the background. So I'm going to quickly go into that. Now I have covered assault in the past, okay? So I'm not going to cover it in detail here, but I am going to cover it very briefly. So if you want to know more about it and more detail, look at one of my previous videos. Okay, Crimes Act 1961, Section 2, Paragraph 1. Okay, assault means the act of intentionally, okay, that means a person intends on doing it, right? Their intent is there. There's no question about it. Their intent is to commit assault. So assault means the act of intentionally applying, okay, or attempting to apply force, okay? So that means attempting to apply force means they might be going to grab you or going to hit you. They haven't actually hit you yet, but they're throwing their punch. As they're throwing that punch, they've already committed assault even before it hits you. If they're going to throw something at you, even though they haven't hit you with what they're throwing yet, that act of throwing it, that attempt at throwing something at you is assault already. Even a person clenching their fist, getting ready to hit you, okay, they're attempting, right, to apply force. They're raising their arm back to go to hit you. They're attempting to assault you, okay, so that's already assault. They're attempting to hit you, they're attempting to grab you, or whatever it might be, okay. So if you see that attempt to attack you in some way or attack someone else, they're already committing assault, okay. That might be them walking up on you, right, they're coming up on you, they're up and ready to go, they're walking up on you, they're already committing assault at that moment, and we can defend ourselves. We don't have to wait for the attack, they're already making their way in to make their attack, right? Alright, so assault means the act of intentionally applying or attempting to apply force to the person of another. So that person that is committing assault, like, you can't assault yourself. Right? It has to be to a person of another person. so to me or to another person. So when a person is doing any of those things to myself, they're committing assault and I can defend myself. If they're doing that to another person, they're committing assault and I can defend that other person, all right, the person of another. Now this person that's committing the assault with whatever they're doing, they could be doing it directly or indirectly. Okay, directly means it's pretty obvious what they're doing. They're trying to punch you, or they're trying to hit you or push you or grab you or kick you or whatever. That's pretty direct. Indirect is when they might be throwing something at you, so they haven't actually well, direct would be with a bat or a club or something. Indirect would be where they're throwing something. They're throwing a knife, or they're throwing a stone, or they're throwing a rock or whatever. That's indirect. They've let it go. Another form of indirect would be when you go to sit down, okay, and a person pulls the chair out from behind you and you fall down and hit the ground. Okay, that's indirect assault. Okay, they've indirectly assaulted you. Right, their act of what they did to you, the act that they did caused you to hurt yourself. That's assault. If you're walking out a door and a person slams the door behind them, they weren't holding onto the door at the time, they let it go, but what they just did there was assault. It was indirect assault. They weren't actually holding onto the door, they've let it go. So if they've done that intentionally, okay, or they've attempted to try and do it even though it didn't hit you, they attempted to try and do it and you managed to jump out of the way, they still committed assault. Okay? The actual door or the ball or the rock or the whatever they're throwing or using doesn't actually have to hit you, they just have to attempt for that object to apply force to you, on you. Okay, or, so there's a big or in there, or that person that is committing assault is threatening you or another person by any act, okay, or gesture, okay. So the act might be, their act or their gesture might be them talking. They're threatening you through words. They're threatening you standing there holding their fists like this. They're pointing at you like this, right? They're going like this to you, or they're doing something to say to you that they're going to hurt you. They want to apply force to you, okay. So they're clearly stating that their intent is there, okay, by doing what they're doing, their act or their gesture, okay. So if a person's walking up to you on the street, they cross the road and they're walking up to you like, you know, and you can see, you can go, hey, man, this guy's like walking up on me like he wants to go, okay. If straight away, if you think that this guy's gesture or the act of what he's doing is showing that he's going to try and hit you or kick you or grab you or steal from you, whatever, okay, assault you, that's assault. Right? Even though he hasn't carried it out, if you believe that's his intent, okay, and we have to be honest about it, okay, if that's what it looks like, all right, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, all right, as the saying goes. So if the person's walking up on you like that and it looks like they're going to hit you, or it looks like they want to hit you, looks like they're going to have a go, right, they're probably going to have a go, all right, so they're committing assault at that time. Okay, so they're threatening by any act or gesture to apply such force to the person of another, to you or another person, all right. If the person making the threat has or causes you or another person to believe on reasonable grounds that he has or the present ability to effect his purpose. What that means is, if you believe when that person is doing this act or gesture or their intent is there and all the stuff I've just talked about, if you believe that they can actually carry out what they're about to do, you believe that they could actually physically hurt you or physically hurt another person, you believe that they're out to do that and they could actually physically hurt that person, then they could affect their purpose. That means they could carry out the purpose of what they're trying to do, okay. Then they're clearly committing assault, all right. and all you have to do is believe that that is the case, okay, on reasonable grounds. You have to believe that that's what they're doing. The person might try and go, oh, I wasn't going to do anything, you know, I wasn't going to do anything, I was just walking, okay. But if you believe on reasonable grounds that that person had intent and that's exactly what they're going to do, you can react. You can defend yourself, okay, and you can defend another person if they're trying to do it to another person, okay. You can defend them. Right, you can defend that person that they're attacking. Right, and you have to have the belief on reasonable grounds that this is the case. This is what is happening. Okay, it doesn't matter about the other person whether they want to try to play the game. Oh, I wasn't going to do anything, or I wasn't doing anything. It's not about what they believe. It's about what you believe. Okay, so they can't try and play that game. Well, they can try, but it's not going to work. Okay, not in a court of law. However, you can't play the game either. You better be under reasonable grounds. Those grounds that you do decide to attack, they better be reasonable. Okay, because if you're just making them up and you get caught out, you're going to get done for it. Okay, so that's Crimes Act 1961, Section 2, Paragraph 1. I'm going to go through this quite quickly. That's because I don't want to waste time on it. We've got a lot to cover. Okay, next part. I'll get this part in and then we'll pause. Okay. Okay. Crimes Act 1961 Section 48. This is what it's talking about with self-defense. What is self-defense? Again, I've covered this in more detail in a previous video, but for the students today, I'm going to cover this. Everyone is justified in using, in the defense of himself or another person, such force, or just is allowed to use force as in the circumstances, okay, as he believes them to be, it is reasonable to use. What that's basically saying is that everyone in New Zealand, in our country, okay, is justified in using force, okay, whatever that force may be, to defend themselves and another person that needs defending in any circumstance. That if I was going to defend somebody, if the circumstances I believed it was reasonable to use self-defense for myself or another person, okay, like what we just talked before. If I believed that a person was committing assault, I can go into self-defense mode, whether it's defending myself or another person that I believe needs defense. Okay? I don't need to stand there and go and ask a police officer, can I defend myself first? Or go and ask somebody, can I defend that person first? If I clearly see that that person is committing assault, I can go them. Okay? However, I've got to use minimum force. Okay, as we just covered. I have to use minimum force. Okay? I can't just go out on a rampage and just start beating the crap out of that person. Okay? I have to justify the amount of force I use. Okay? Alright. So that's when we use self-defense, and that's only when we use self-defense. We only use self-defense when we are being assaulted or when somebody else is being assaulted. Otherwise, we don't use self-defense. We have no need for using self-defense against another person unless they are committing assault. Okay? Whether it's direct assault, indirect assault, it's intentional. Okay? What was the other part? It's intent. Okay, or they're attempting to apply force, they're attempting to commit assault, and things like that. Okay, and we believe it's on reasonable grounds that they are committing assault, right, by their gestures or their actions. Then we go into self-defense mode. Okay, everybody, remember, everybody in this country, it's you, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your auntie, your mother, your cousin, whoever, we're allowed to defend ourselves when the other person is committing assault. So it's that simple. Okay? So don't be afraid to defend yourself. Okay? If somebody is committing assault, don't be afraid to defend yourself. A lot of people don't react when they should react. They don't defend themselves when they should defend themselves because they don't know when they're allowed to or not. Okay? And there's the fear that they might get prosecuted, or the fear that they might be doing something wrong. just do what you got to do. Okay, if the other person is committing assault, defend yourself, defend another person if you think you can safely do that as well. Okay, so I'll end it there, and then what we'll be doing is we'll be getting into the first physical part of the day's events. Okay, so let's pause it there. Thanks for coming on. Cheers, bye.